in a dark alley of my memory, there is an evening from my childhood that I still remember vividly. At the time, I was working to make money and a full-time nanny. Because it was a convenient job for a high school student like me, I had several families contact me when they needed a babysitter. Among the family was my neighbor, Mr. Johnson. They are great people, friendly and easy to understand. I used to babysit their kids, so when they asked me to babysit their 2-year-old daughter, Emily, while they attended dinner one night, I readily agreed. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson carefully trained Emily on her bedtime routine and emergency contact list. They entrusted me with their youngest son, and I was determined to prove them right. They confidently let me into their cozy home to enjoy the warm light of the setting sun. That evening everything started as usual. Emily was a wonderful and curious child. We built giant blocks, explored her favorite storybooks, and played board games. As the night wore on, Emily's energy waned. So I politely placed her on the bed and placed her favorite teddy bear next to her to make her comfortable. As evening fell, the house gradually became quiet. Only the slow hum of the refrigerator and the rhythmic ticking of the wall clock broke the silence. After putting Emily to bed, I laid on the couch and waited for a quiet evening. But life involves sudden and unexpected changes, and tonight was no exception. Without thinking about it, a deafening sound shattered the peaceful silence of the house. I was about to go outside to check where the sound was coming from when a sound came from the living room. My heart was pounding and adrenaline was coursing through my veins. To my surprise, I found a broken window with shards of glass scattered on the floor. Fear gripped my heart, but I knew that keeping Emily safe was my top priority. I hit the waves and braced myself for what was to come. As I made my way to Emily's room, a creepy, shadowy figure appeared without warning in the hallway. The menacing man was tall and intimidating, an ominous figure visible in the dark hallway. When our eyes met and I recognized the tension, it was as if frozen time had stopped. I immediately knew I had to protect Emily, and my heart raced as the gravity of the situation hit me. I tried to muster up the courage to face my abuser, but he proved to be stronger, more agile and more skilled than me. He hit me with brute force, knocking me unconscious and knocking me to the ground. I remember praying for Emily's well-being before I passed out. My thoughts were so concerned with her well-being. When I finally regained consciousness, I felt sick to my stomach and confused. Both Emily and the intruder are gone, leaving an empty, disturbing void in the house. I struggled with guilt and the thought that I couldn't protect her. Even in the haze of pain, I mustered the strength to call 911. All I could do was pray that the police would find Emily before it was too late. The days that followed were filled with fear, guilt, and a glimmer of hope. I felt like I was in a living nightmare, and I couldn't escape it. I couldn't eat or sleep. All I can think is that Emily is in grave danger some way. Fortunately, a breakthrough has finally occurred. The police found tracks left by the intruder and led them to an old house on the outskirts of town. There they found Emily in a damp, dark basement. When she saw the officers, her emotions were a mixture of fear and relief, and my heart was filled with gratitude to know she was safe. What happened that dark night left an indelible mark on me. It changed my worldview forever and reinforced how dark and dangerous the world can be. I was cautious and aware of the dangers lurking in the shadows. It also made me appreciate the time I spend with family and friends, knowing that unexpected horrors can happen even in the middle of the night. After that evening, babysitting took on a new meaning for me. I have always been alert and vigilant to ensure the safety of the children in my care. I hope my story will inspire others to be more careful when entrusting the safety of innocent young people with their lives. Emily bore the scars of that terrible night, both physically and emotionally. But with time and professional help, she began a difficult journey of healing. Little by little, we resisted the darkness that surrounded us and slowly began to rebuild our lives. It wasn't an easy process, But her resilience and the unwavering support of her family were a beacon of hope in the darkest of times. The guilt of not being able to protect Emily was a burden that could never be lifted. It was a constant reminder to be vigilant and protect the people I love, not just as a babysitter, but in all areas of life. Of course, life went on. Even though I finished school, went to college and started working, the memory of that night stayed in my mind. This was one of the stories we shared when the conversation turned into a life-changing experience. That night I failed to protect Emily and taught me the true meaning of courage and resilience, a lesson I will cherish for the rest of my life. I was struggling financially. I had so many bills and I was longing for financial help. After the midnight meal, my pockets were as empty as the cookie jar. My job was completely unfulfilling and I was afraid of not making a living. It was a dark cloud hanging over my head and darkening every aspect of my life. Desperation made me think of another way to make money, so I became a nanny for the posh family next door. I had no idea that this seemingly innocent performance would quickly turn into a nightmare. At first, everything went as smoothly as honey dripping from a spoon. The boy I took care of was such a sweet kid, and I loved spending time with him. He had that adorable toothless smile and laughed like there was no tomorrow. The parents, especially the father, were kind, welcoming, and grateful for my help. But after working for a few days, the atmosphere changed. It was as if an invisible weight, a thick fog of doubt surrounded him like a shadow. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I felt like the father was constantly watching my every move. I don't know if he was following me around the house or if he came in too often, but his all-knowing gaze made me very uncomfortable. As the weeks went by, my anxiety started to get worse. It was no longer a casual curiosity. It got much darker. I began to question his motives and why he was so obsessed with me. I mean, who wouldn't cringe when someone scrutinizes your every move and makes you feel like you're under a microscope? On a typical evening, I went about my usual routine. I put the baby to bed and felt calm and peaceful after a long day. My plan was to take a relaxing bath and relax. There's nothing better than washing away your worries in a tub full of warm water and soft bubbles, right? I was about to dip my feet in the water when I noticed something strange. It was a strange object hidden behind a fluffy towel. As I got closer, a realization hit me that was heartbreaking. There was a small hidden camera hanging in the corner of the bathroom, its lens dangerously focused on the tub I had just stepped into. When it hit me, my heart caught in my throat and my breathing quickened. He was following me without my knowledge or consent. With my heart beating like a drum, I walked out of the bathroom and ran into the father. He gave an Oscar-worthy performance without even knowing there were cameras. But when the camera was turned on him, his facade crumbled. He stalked me and invaded my privacy, and what surprised me the most was his lack of repentance. That moment was terrifying, but what followed was a horrifying revelation. He admitted his intentions, and they were not misrepresented or dishonest. He wanted to touch me and invade my personal space in the most disgusting ways imaginable. The severity of the situation hit me like a hammer. A deep fear settled in my bones. Panic rose within me, but I knew I had to get rid of this living fear, and I had to do it fast. Making up my mind, I decided to confront him directly. He quickly grabbed me and tried to touch me. I mustered all my strength and didn't force anything. My heart started beating fast as I refused to blame myself for the terrible situation I was in. It was an uphill battle, but my survival instincts kept me going. I tried my best to escape from his grip. I ran for the nearest exit, adrenaline coursing through my veins like a freight train. I was afraid that if I dared to look back, I would be overtaken. So I ran around the house, my heart racing. Opening the door and being greeted by the cool night air, I took a deep breath and opened my eyes. The truth of the situation hit me like a wave and tears flowed from my eyes. Although I was physically unharmed, the psychological wounds were deep. It was a work that reminded us that danger can come from unexpected places. Although I have recovered from that terrible experience, I still shudder to think what would have happened if I had not escaped. It reminds us that even in the most favorable circumstances, we must not let our guard down. The world is full of surprises, but not all of them are pleasant. I had regular gigs as a babysitter, which was usually a good thing. I love spending time with my kids, and this family was great. They were very welcoming, and their home felt like a cozy retreat. But let me tell you, I had no idea this babysitting thing was going to turn into a nightmare. When I was handed the reins in the evening, there was a sweet baby sleeping upstairs at my parents' house. So I was relaxing in the living room waiting for a quiet and peaceful night. But it seems the universe has other plans. It all started when my phone rang. I received a call from an unknown number. I usually let this call pass because it's just a telemarketer or a wrong number. But that evening I had a strange feeling that made me decide to answer. I want to know what life-changing decisions are. Hello. A soft, buttery voice greeted me on the other end of the phone. I sincerely hope you enjoy your time here. At first I thought it was a joke, but as the conversation progressed, my skin began to tingle with discomfort. The man across the street wasn't kidding. They knew the house inside and out down to the smallest detail. They were able to describe every little feature of the place, from the creaky floors to the flickering lights. I'll tell you, it looked like they had a plan for the whole house, and that blew me away. I couldn't see the stairs leading to the kindergarten. At that moment, I was torn between my safety and the safety of my child. It was a difficult choice, but I plucked up the courage to tell the caller to stop. But my answer was not clear. The real game has just begun, said the voice on the other end of the line with a smile. It's not a joke. A shiver ran down my spine. It wasn't about me anymore. It was to protect the child. I climbed up, holding a nearby broom. My heart was beating like a drum, and I had no idea what was going to happen. The house seemed to be haunted, with strange shadows and strange, unusual sounds. When I crawled into the kindergarten, my heart almost drowned. But there was no one inside. My mind started to panic. What if I take my child while they are looking for me? I knew I had to do something fast. I called 911, my voice shaking as I tried to explain the strange situation to the dispatcher. But I couldn't wait for help to come. I began to sweep the house, stroke by stroke. Every creak of the floorboards made my heart beat faster, and a glimmer of light played with my thoughts. Then I heard a faint hum. It was such a faint sound that I had to hold my breath as I approached, holding onto the broom like a lifeline. In the dim light of the living room, I saw a masked figure. As we looked at each other, the tension in the room seemed to rise. I shouted to scare him, and he ran for the door. I chased him away, broom in hand, adrenaline coursing through my veins. When the police finally arrived, they searched the house from top to bottom, but the intruder had vanished like a ghost. He seemed to melt into thin air. I called my parents and told them about the strange situation, and they promised to find out the truth. But the mysterious invader and his terrible knowledge haunted my thoughts for a long time. It filled my head with questions and renewed my attention span. I stopped seeing strange events as mere coincidences. This evening reminds us that darkness can easily creep into even the brightest corners of our lives. This was a wake-up call that taught me to never take safety for granted and to always be prepared for the unexpected, especially when it comes to caring for the most vulnerable among us.